And good evening, everybody, and welcome to College Football Wraparound. I'm Cooper Naylor, and I am so glad that you could join us here tonight. We've got a couple things we're going to talk about. First of all, we'll start with Les Miles. He is suing Louisiana State University, most commonly known as LSU. And then we will also get into my top four rankings, which are official for the beginning of the season. Now, one thing you may be realizing about the rankings is that we've got a different system than we did in the early poll. Well, what we did is we went through ESPN's Football Power Index, and we went and took the teams throughout that with the way ESPN's got it right. And we're basically giving you a choice. So, like, if you're trying to rank number one, you only have 4 teams to choose from, which is the top 4 teams within the ESPN FPI. That's how we did it. I know it may not be, you may not be able to pick your favorite team, but it hopefully will give a system where we can get a more accurate result with how we want to rank these teams. But with all that being said, we are live tonight to talk about, first and foremost, Les Miles. He is suing the LSU. Now, the article that I'm reading is coming from Fox News, and it says former LSU coach Les Miles sues school, claims vacated wins keeping him out of College Football Hall of Fame. So, LSU self-imposed the vacancy of 37 wins, which brings Les Miles' career record below the necessary 600 to get into the College Hall of Fame. So a lot of this is stemming from that there was a player, which at the time, if you remember, there was no NIL at this time. So what this is saying, and this is quoting from Fox News, says the violation, which came in 2012, was placed on LSU's program after a rep for Tigers Athletics paid the father of a prospective athlete a total of $180,000, a little over $180,000 over a 5-year span in an embezzlement scheme. And it says the athlete was enrolled at LSU from 2012 to 2016. So that's where this is stemming from. They had 37 wins vacated, which it brought Les Miles' record. So it says taking out those wins brought him to 108-73, which is a cutoff for a coach to be considered for the Hall of Fame, which the NCAA and National Football Foundation oversees. Says both organizations are also listed as defendants in the suit. So what does this mean? Personally, I think if you go and look at the way it was done back then, and I mean, I don't think it's fair to just single out one singular coach and one singular team. And here's why I say that. And that is because everybody was doing it. I've been saying this forever on this channel. I mean, go back, look at my videos. I have been saying this. I have held firm on the idea that this is not LSU's not the only place that did this. I mean, heck, Alabama's done it, Georgia, Texas, USC, like all the teams around in this country have done this. Every sport has done this. They want the best, so they're going to pay them. NIL, in that sense, it was just like, well, why do we not do this sooner? And the reason why I say that is because they've already been paying. So they might as well just go ahead anyway. But do I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame? I think he is that quality of a coach. He definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. But would this whole embezzlement scheme keep him out? Yes, it can. So do I think he's going to be successful in this lawsuit? I don't know. And here's the thing, is that these things will probably get, you may see some kind of settlement, and it may end up being in Les Miles' favor that he will be able to get into the Hall of Fame. We never know with these kind of cases. But most of the time, I will say, most of the time go into a settlement. So, personally, I really don't know. What is y'all's thoughts, though? Because that is something that I really want to know. Do you think that Les Miles deserves to be in the Hall of Fame of college football? If we're looking at it from just a standpoint of take away all the, all these and all the scandals and all that kind of thing that happens with, let me be honest, it happens with every coach. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? I think it's a question you have to really ask yourself. For me, if I'm looking at a standpoint of how did he coach, what did he accomplish, I mean, I think he deserves to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. So, I mean, I guess that's the question you got to ask yourself is, do you think he deserves to be there? So, of course, if you have any questions, we will end. I'll take questions at the end of the show. But now let's go ahead and dive into who I had in my top 4. So here's what I'm going to do: is that until the beginning of the college football season, whenever I come live for college football wraparound, I'm going to talk about my rankings and how I had it and how my rankings are kind of going to stand until the beginning of the season. So here is my top 4. Now, again, like I said, I was voting by the same poll that you voted on so that we could get as many responses to this poll as we can. So my response is one of many that I hope to have in this poll. So here is my top 4 right now. And this is who I believe. So, number 1, I have Georgia. Now, why Georgia? Well, for one, you got to look at, you got your starting quarterback coming back, which is Carson Beck. He had an incredible season. I mean, if we're all going to be honest, if we truly were looking at the 4 best teams last year, which I think a lot of people would have hated to admit this, but Georgia was definitely one of the best teams in college football. They were, I would say, the fact that they lost to Alabama definitely knocked them out. I mean, yeah, it did. But here's the thing. I personally probably would have put them ahead of Washington. Georgia was that good last year. Personally, I would have had Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Georgia. Going back and looking at how everything ended up. And then I would have had Florida State and Washington playing the ball game, which we all knew how that went with Georgia and Florida State. But that's besides the fact. Georgia, like I said, they have a returning starting quarterback. And to be completely honest, Kirby Smart has built Georgia a lot like the way that Nick Saban built Alabama. And that is, they just have the pieces every single year where they can go win a national championship. So the turnover, yes, there's a lot of turnover, but at the same time for Georgia, it's not going to matter because I feel like they're still going to be up there. Now, they did lose Brock Bowers, who was arguably probably the best player on that team, which is saying a lot because Georgia did have a lot of incredible players on that roster. And right now, I'm going to pull up who is going to be the quarterback. But not quarterback, but I'm going to get you their roster. So for 2024, we're going to look at – Oscar Delp is a guy that could replace Brock Bowers. I believe he was the backup last year, so he's most likely going to be the guy on that as far as tight end is concerned. Plus, they have a deep roster. When it comes to the run game, they're going to be fine. I mean, Trevor Etienne's a guy who's on the team. I believe, if I'm correct, Trevor Etienne, he was the guy who was at Florida last year. So if I'm going to be honest with you, Georgia football is not going anywhere. They're the number one team in my mind. If I'm looking past, any kind of bias I have towards any kind of team, Georgia definitely is number one in my mind. Number two is Texas. Again, you have a returning starting quarterback in Quinn Ewers. But here's the big question I have for Texas this season is how do you manage having Quinn Ewers as a starting quarterback? You got a second-year guy in Arch Manning. When does Arch get to play? This is really questions, but here's the thing. Arch probably just needs like one good year, and he would be in the NFL. With having the last name Manning, I feel like that does help him a lot. Texas is just going to be a team that is going to be dangerous. And they're going to be dangerous for years to come. Again, another Saban assistant, Steve Sarkisian. He's a great coach. And players want to go play for the best coaches. And that's the thing with Georgia and Texas is they got two of the best coaches in the game right now. You could argue probably the two best coaches in the game right now. That could be a conversation that if you want to answer that in the comments, you can answer that. But Texas, to me, is definitely number two. Number three, I've got Oregon. Here's the thing. They may have lost Bo Nix to the NFL, but they got another guy coming in, and that is Dylan Gabriel, who was the starting quarterback at Oklahoma last season. The one thing I want to see him improve on is that he's a great quarterback, but he did have that tendency to make some plays that were a little out of character. And when I say out of character, I mean that they may be in a close game and he may throw an interception that really would cost the game. So that's where I think if you're Oregon, that's really what I think they're looking for, is that Oregon's really going to be an interesting team to watch this season, which Dan Lanning is a great coach. They're going to find a way to be one of the best teams in the college football. So Oregon is my number three. And then number four, I have Ohio State. Now, you have Will Howard coming in. He's a transfer from Kansas State who's coming in to be the quarterback. And then Quinshon Judkins, another guy who's a running back. He's transferring from Ole Miss to Ohio State. The question I have with Ohio State is, and here's why I think Oregon's better than them, is that I feel like if you go back and watch the ball game, which that don't mean nothing, but in a sense, I wonder, can this offense actually click this season? I mean, I'm skeptical about it because I want to see what this offense can do. Plus, with new offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, I'm just interested to see, can they actually win when it matters? And I think that's the thing for the last 3 years that Ohio State has ran into, is that Ohio State has not been able to win the big game, which is Michigan. This season, I think they are much better than Michigan. But when it comes down to the game, we'll see. So that's my top 4 in college football right now. So what we can do right now is if you have any questions, put them in the chat right now. I am, happy to answer your questions that you may have and respond to some of these comments right quick. Chris Naylor is saying Les Miles is not a Hall of Famer. He has too much baggage from LSU and Kansas. Okay, and that's kind of where I wanted to get at. Is like, are we going by? Are we going to add in that extra baggage, or are we going to go straight off strict results that came on the field? Because I mean, if I'm looking at results, Les Miles he's definitely in the Hall of Fame. But okay, I totally understand keeping him out because of the baggage that comes along with it. Derek is saying that he thinks Oregon and Ohio State need to swap for my rankings. And I mean, that's why I put the poll out, is so that we can kind of get a Saber Broadcast Network poll that reflects the whole viewership of the channel. So, let's see here. So Derek's asking me, what do you think of Auburn this year, and who do you think is the SEC in the SEC championship this season, or best in the SEC? So, first of all, I think Auburn is going to be much improved this season, for sure. I mean, I don't think they're going to have a dud game like they did against New Mexico State. I mean, that was the one I saw of theirs last year. Being honest, rough game to see. If you're an Auburn fan, that was definitely a rough game to see. I do think they're much improved. I will say this, because if they get I would say if you get to 9-3, if you're Auburn with the 12-team field, I think you feel pretty good. I'm being completely honest with you. If you're an SEC team and you go 9-3 this season, I think you should feel pretty good that you're going to get in the playoff. That is my opinion here. So I think Auburn is going to be much improved. Right now, I still have them in that. I can't remember where I had them as far as my rankings. We'll get into that later when we get closer to the season. But really, I think Auburn is a team that's going to really challenge some of these other teams in the SEC. And really, the Iron Bowl is going to be must-watch television this season. Because I will be honest, you got a much better Auburn team going into Tuscaloosa. And then, it's Kalen DeBoer's first year. Iron Bowl is a circlet game. So, and then when you're talking about the best team in the SEC this season, here's my thing. Because if I'm looking at these teams, I still think Georgia, I have them at number 1 in my rankings for a reason. That's because I think they right now have the best chance to win a championship. Now, don't get me wrong. For those of you who know who I root for, it does pain me to say that from a standpoint of I'm trying to give you accurate information about who I think's the best right now. And that is, I think Georgia has the best chance. The reason why I think Texas is 2 is because I think they probably have the second chance. So Alabama is probably 5. I think Oregon's 3 and Ohio State's 4. I think that's just how you have to do it. So right now, I'm thinking Georgia-Texas SEC championship in a rematch game would be a pretty good game to watch. I think most everybody would agree. If you get Carson Beck against Quinn Ewers in Atlanta at the end of the season for an SEC championship, it's an epic game. And you're looking at a chance to get a bye in the playoff. That is if I'm looking at this 12-team playoff method, I think that is the one thing I'm looking at and being like, okay, that is where I do like that. And that is that the championship would matter for getting a bye for the playoff. Other than that, I don't really like the 12-team model, but that's another story for another day. So Georgia and Texas, I think, are the two best teams in the SEC and in the country going into this season. So, is there any more questions? If so, put them in the chat, and I will be glad to answer them for you here this evening. So, let's see here. What do we... So Derek's asking, will there be an undefeated SEC team or any undefeated team? Well, again, based by my rankings, I think Georgia has the best chance to go undefeated. Now, if they do have to have a rematch against Texas, that's probably not going to happen. So, do I think there'll be any undefeated teams? No. And the reason why I say that is because I think this year's competition is going to be so intense, you can't have an undefeated team. So I think if you're looking at the ACC, like I think if you truly look at the ACC, Florida State will not be undefeated like they were last season through the regular season. They're going to lose a game. That's something to keep in mind. So no, I don't think there will be any undefeated teams at the end of the season, which I think is good for the sport. Because I think it's going to be very competitive this season within college football. So that is my opinions on that question. So, of course, there is a lot that we can dive into. And then we got another question, which is, will Jalen Milroe be the Heisman winner? Right now, I say no. Here's the reason. What I want to see out of Jalen Milroe with Kalen DeBoer coming in as the head coach of Alabama is, can he, and I mean, this is just me being honest, is he going to be able to actually grow as a passer? Because I think that's the thing that he's been held back with, is that he has not truly learned how to pass the ball accurately. Because, okay, his deep ball is great, but it's those intermediate passes that I feel like it got better at the end of the season, but it still was not great. So if you're a Bama fan, I think that's the thing that all Bama fans are looking at as if, okay, Milroe, we know that you are a very talented quarterback. You can scramble and gain yards, but are you able to throw the ball accurately on the intermediate passes? We can't just rely on you to throw the deep ball all game long. Defense is going to figure that out. Are you going to be able to throw those intermediate passes? So that's the thing I'm looking at for Jalen Milroe. If he can improve on that, then Heisman is probably going to happen for him. He's probably going to get that Heisman. But if he doesn't improve it, I don't think he gets the Heisman. Like, it's just that simple. And I think if they were to give it to him, if he does not improve on the passing, then I think that's going to hurt college football. Because it already is a popularity vote, but then it would just truly prove the fact of it's just popularity. It does not matter what you do on the field. So right now, that's just my opinion on Jalen Milroe. He's got to improve. So with that, if you have any more questions, just after the video's over, drop them in the comments, and I can discuss it later on my next live stream. As far as that date, we will get that. We will, of course, update you. For those of you who follow me on Facebook, I will definitely get you some information. And then for those of you on YouTube, I'll put a community post out whenever I'm getting ready to go live, so that you know when I'm going live. So for that, and then if you're on Rumble, also, I will schedule the day of the live stream. It'll be scheduled and ready to go. So with that being said, I want to thank y'all for watching this live stream tonight. It's been fun talking about some college football. It's very interesting stuff going on within the sport. So we'll be back soon with some more college football wraparound. Oh, also, Derek is asking, when will you produce the rankings? Next week. So next week is my next live stream. I did say that. So next week, I'm not certain on the day yet, but when at next week's stream, I will give you the results of the rankings and go through it. So that you have a good idea of how you, the voters, ranked. So, again, thank y'all for watching. We'll see you again later. Good night, everybody.